iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.
Laura Bell Bundy, welcome back to iHeartRadio Broadway.
Thanks for having me.
So first and foremost, we're 14 months into this whole entire craziness. We haven't talked to you for a while now, so I'm just checking back in. How are things before we talk about all the exciting news with the album launch?
Things are good. You know, we went through a lot of changes as a family between the beginning of the pandemic and now. And I think, like a lot of people, we had sort of existential crises as we were stuck alone in our homes with ourselves and our thoughts, and not a lot of creative outlets. We decided to sell our home in California and move back to the East Coast. And we moved an hour outside of New York City to New Jersey to a 18-acre sheep farm.
It's if you don't follow Laura on Instagram, you must, because now I feel like it's all about the tractors, it's the sheep, it's your son living on the farm, and it's the most adorable thing in the world.
Yeah, there's more that I haven't even posted, you know, like I have him in a chicken coop yesterday. It's so fun. First of all, it's just fun seeing the world through the eyes of a toddler, but seeing farm life through the eyes of a toddler is really exceptional. And he's just loving it. And our sheep are so cute. They're preggo.
Uh-oh.
Not all of them. I think 4 of them are pregnant.
Okay.
And we're gonna have little in June.
Is it a little bit of a shock to the system to go from California living to farm living?
It's funny farm over here. We don't know what we're doing. We're like, where do I feed them? Where do I put the water? Is it safe to go inside here with this ram? There's a couple, you know, it's just a learning curve. But I will say, you know, I'm from Kentucky. And I'm used to farmland. I'm used to long drives on country roads. I am used to wide open spaces and love wide open spaces. So that's my happy place. And I think I've always been a little bit of a split personality in terms of the city girl that loves the independence of just walking out the door and being, you know, walking anywhere I wanted to go, and the ease and the convenience of going next door to the deli. Like that is a part of me too. But on the other hand, I my other happy place is to be on a farm in the middle of nature and going hiking all the time and having creeks and going fishing on a pond. So it's nice. I have the best of both worlds, and I'm an hour outside of New York City, and it's great.
I was going to say, you're now back on the East Coast, which is the best of all worlds.
I know. Yeah. The winter was hard. We moved during a snowstorm. So I was like, what did I do? But the spring has been beautiful. I've never experienced spring so intimately. You know, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh, new flowers, or oh, there's more green leaves on the trees. And so I'm really experiencing spring in the most intimate way I ever have. It's really been amazing.
And I think also with what we've all gone through for the last 14 months, to see this rebirth of springtime happen when when we've all been cooped up indoors and not really doing much, I'm sure that's also lovely.
Yes, and you're seeing a sense of rebirth in terms of being able to be more social because more people are vaccinated and feeling safer to be with each other. I think I'm definitely enjoying that rebirth, you know, and that ability to socialize with friends and family in a more safe way.
Absolutely. And I want to say I want to say it was almost 2 years ago, you and I had a phone call to talk about this album, and now it's here. May 7th, Women of Tomorrow is being released. And it's so crazy to think that I want to say it was like a 2 years ago, we had this conversation about what iHeartRadio can do to help you with the album and all of this. And here it is.
I
So
know.
what's the excitement level right now for you?
Well, I'm just excited to release this baby into the world. Like, I have been gestating and pregnant with this album for almost 2 years, right? So I guess I started Yeah, I started writing this album in January of 2019 and finished it um, by like December 2019. And I think we spoke around then. Um, and you know, it's been a project that I care really deeply about. It's been different than any other album that I've ever worked on because I'm addressing different issues that women are facing today. And it's required me to do a bit of research in regards to those women's issues, but also a bit of soul searching on how I've been affected. And then put make that music in a way that people want to listen to it. You know,
So,
that's
and I guess that's my question is what was the inciting factor for you to start writing this album? I think I know what it was, but for those watching, what was that inciting factor to help birth this album?
So, 2017 was based on the 2016 election there was a big movement in regards to women's rights. And that's when you saw the Women's March uh, happen and all over the country. And and I think maybe a sense of ownership about how far we've come as women and a fear of losing some of those rights because none of those have been a given. But I had this concert at the town hall called Double Standards, where two Broadway stars, recording artists, or comedians would come together and sing a duet on a jazz standard, and it was called Double Standards. And all of we were raising money for women's rights and women's health, and it was amazing. It was this incredible. It was almost like a women's march, but on stage singing. So I was like, my motto was, "We can march, but you ain't heard nothing till you hear us sing."
Hmm.
And it felt like from there, I really wanted to make an album. I thought originally what I was going to do is just have everybody come back and record what they did for the concert in a professional way. But being a songwriter, I was inspired by the challenges that we face as a gender, and I decided to dive into those subjects, and it just came out in a poetic way and a musical way, and so I began to write these original songs. The first song I wrote was Digital Disease, which is our obsession with social media, and then Calling All Lost Boys, which is a lullaby to straight white men from their moms, on how do you don't know how to treat women? I'll tell you. How would you treat your mother? But that's a lullaby, but it's also about forgiveness, and it's also about understanding, um and then we have songs about equal pay and all of the different issues that we're facing today: unattainable beauty standards, over apologizing, with a song called I'm Sick of Saying Sorry. And the style of the album, so in my mind it was double standard, so I was taking the standard style, which is that big band, almost like an MGM movie musical, adding some modern pop production and some beats and some things like that, to make it a little bit more relevant. And then we're using modern lyrics and we're talking about modern things. So it's that juxtaposition between what's old and what's new
Hmm.
and relevant.
And you were very strategic in the singles that you released leading up to the album launch on May 7th, not 17th, May 7th, this Friday. Get It Girl, You Go, which featured you, Aniki Nani Rose, Shoshana Bean, was the first single. And I'm curious why you chose that as the first single, plus the music video that came out, which was amazing. Because I know how you all produced that during quarantine. But why was that important for you to release that as the first single?
Well, it was all about the timing. Um, it was the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, and many people say women getting the right to vote, but it was only white women that got the right to vote 100 years ago. Women of color did not get the right to vote until 1965, but there's still a celebration of that. So I wanted to release that in celebration of how far we've come in the last 100 years, but also feature all of the candidates that were running, the female candidates that were running for office in 2020. So part of it was like, hey, let's celebrate how far we've come and let's sing this song about female empowerment and women doing it all called Get It Girl You Go, with 3 women from different socioeconomic backgrounds leading this. And let's feature these women that are ordinary women who have pursued these goals and these dreams, and they want to make change. And not only are they hitting the streets to march, they're actually running for office. So it felt like a song about sisterhood, about how far we've come in celebration of our gender, our voting rights, but also, hey, let's vote for women. And that's the thing with this album, is that's different than other albums that I've done in the past, which is like, oh, I'm going to write a song about my heartbreak and I'm going to share it with all of you. This is very different. The messages have a mission, and the mission for that particular song was to remind us of how far we've come and let's celebrate, but also, hey, get out and vote. And you could click at the end of the video and you could register to vote.
And I also want to talk about the recent single, American Girl, which is an amazing single, but I'm also curious about filming the music video for American Girl, because it was done during the pandemic and it's highly stylized and absolutely fantastic. So I'm curious what that filming process was like, especially with everything we're facing today.
Right. So, when we are conceptualizing these music videos and we're doing it in a time of a quarantine, we can't have a big cast. And like, Get It Girl You Go was all shot with me, Shoshana, and Anika on a green screen. And then the editor put us together and we were doing the same choreography. So the editor had to make it appear as if we were doing that together. So in that same kind of thinking with American Girl, how are we going to do this music video? Well, I'm the only one in it, but I'm playing these different versions of myself that are all together, these different consciousnesses of myself sitting in this same room. And we had a crew of 5 people. A lot of people had this, like my songwriting partner, Shay Carter, was also my wardrobe person and also in the video. And also getting Starbucks for everyone, it was just like, and the makeup hair guy was also, helping with things. So it was just sort of one of those types of videos. Our director of photography was also the editor. I was directing it. And so I was also in it. So it's like, how can you do this with the smallest crew ever? What we had to do is actually, it took us longer to film it because we had a smaller crew. We filmed in one location that was a safe location. Everybody was tested before. Everybody had masks on. And it was crazy because this was literally, we wrapped this video the day before they did a shutdown in LA for production because of the situation with COVID. So we got in right at the tail end of being able to film anything. But you just have to do that with a limited crew, and you really have to have this sense of teamwork and commitment to getting something done. And it was actually lovely. It was not a lot of, everybody was we had a common goal, but everybody's so happy to be able to be creative. And it was such an awesome feeling. We used some special effects too. It was fun. It was a really fun video.
It's a beautiful video, and between the set and the wardrobe and the hairstyles, I mean, the whole thing is really just visually stunning. So congratulations for putting it together and producing it. I mean, when I watched it for the first time, my jaw was on the ground because it is so beautiful.
Thank you so much. I mean, I think our DP, Joshua Noonan, he's magical. We had an amazing team, and so I thank all of them for that and making that video really look amazing. But conceptually, the song is about consumerism and how, as women, we're constantly sold this idea that we are not enough without these products or these shoes or this life or what that other woman has. And then when we get those things, somehow we find ourselves still empty.
Yeah.
And so that's essentially what the song is about, a woman that has it all and is still unhappy.
And that song is just one of many on this album that does come out on May 7th. I want to keep pushing the May 7th drop for the album. If someone's going to listen to this album cover to cover for the first time, what do you hope they get out of the album when they're done listening?
Well, it depends on who they are. If it's a woman, I hope that they'll feel empowered, and they'll be able to not only learn a little bit about the journey of their gender and what's going on right now, but also feel empowered to step forth, to make a difference, to activate, but to be who they are, to really feel the freedom to be who they are without any pretense, without adding anything on top of that, and to see their innate power. Because women are really incredibly powerful. We birth the entire human race. We've nursed the entire human race. I mean, what's more powerful than that? And
I think with your song, and I'm going to get the title wrong, but it's the one where we should stop saying sorry.
Oh, sick of saying sorry.
Sick of saying sorry. Thank you. It's the song that I think hits the closest for me because I'm constantly saying sorry for things that I shouldn't be sorry about. And I think as women, we just innately say it all the time. Oh, I'm sorry. Can I trouble you for something? Or I'm sorry. Can I ask you a question? It's like, why am I sorry that I'm asking someone a question? And I think it's just been something that's been ingrained in our system to constantly say.
We as a gender have been made to feel as if we're a burden, and that when we use our voices, we've got to apologize in advance for it. There's a reason for this, though. Historically, if we go back to the earliest known law code ever written, 2400 BC, Mesopotamia, it states if a woman speaks out of turn, her teeth will be smashed by a brick. There, in early colonial times, there were these things called scold's bridles, which were essentially iron muzzle cages with a tongue plate and a spike, that if a woman was gossipy, naggy, her uncontrollable, said something to her husband, the constable could come over and put this iron muzzle cage on her and parade her through the town while everybody was beating on pots and pans. We also know about Bedlam, right? If you were a woman and you had a mind of your own, she must be insane. Let's put her in the insane asylum, or she's a witch. So I think collectively, in the collective consciousness, women are like, oh no, there will be violence used against me if I speak. So we always say, hey, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Can I ask a question? I'm so sorry. I have something to say. Well, why do we feel like that? Well, we feel like that because of historically what we've been challenged with. But now I think we can start changing that way of thinking, that we are enough, and the ideas that we have in our head, they're important enough to speak.
Yes. I mean, I have nothing else to say, but yes, I think trying to get out of the mindset of always having to say sorry should be an easy concept, but it can be so incredibly difficult to get it out of your own vernacular.
And I think it's also how we're raised, right? Yeah. Like, I know for sure, I'm raised in the South, like, you need to act like a lady and talk like a lady and don't interrupt. And it's hard to retrain those habits, and to unlearn things that you've been taught as a child about your value and your place. You should know your place. And those are really tricky. And I think a lot of it starts with, here we are, it's Mother's Day weekend. Big responsibility is in how we parent our children.
Absolutely.
and parent our daughters, especially. Well, actually, parenting our sons, man. I have a son, and I think it is so important for my son to see powerful women, to respect powerful women, and to be taught how to treat a woman, and to be taught about consent, to be taught
Hmm.
about all of these things that I don't think have been taught. So I'm looking forward to, and I think I got to tell you, when I first, decided, I did IVF, but and I could have chosen the sex of my child, but I did not. And when I found out I was having a boy, and I'm in the middle of all of the, this female activism, that I was like, oh, but now, I mean, I love being a boy mom, and I love the opportunity to raise a son to respect women and himself, and not become like overly masculated, to be
Yep.
everything he is authentically and express himself, and to not think like, you know, crying is there's anything wrong with that.
Well, and I think men in touch with their feelings sometimes gets a bad rap, but it's literally just living in your feelings and raising sons to be aware of those feelings as a good thing and not a detriment to how they're going to act as adults, um, is very powerful. And I feel like the children of today are growing up in a society where they don't care anymore about certain things. They don't care about gender identity. They don't care about sexual identity. It just is. It's just a very natural thing in the world right now. It's not questionable. And that's what I think is so amazing about the children for the next generation. It's just the world they live in.
That the expectations have changed, and in fact have lightened the
Mhm.
expectation on what it means to be a woman or a man or them. We are opening up to seeing that we're all just human beings trying to live, survive, to connect, and be
To
present,
love.
to love, yeah, and be loved. And and that's tricky, because in this time of writing an album about women, and you do sort of examine, well, what is gender anyway, and why do I have to be focused on that at all? I do think that I will have, as I grow and as I learn and experience more of the world and understand more about gender fluidity, that my ideas even about being a woman and these issues will adjust and change over time.
I have another question, but I do want to push Women of Tomorrow, May 7th. Um, Literally, please listen to this album. Laura has been working on it for so long, and it's been an amazing journey to watch you go through. You can buy it wherever you buy your albums, and you can stream it on all streaming devices. You are a Broadway performer, you're a Broadway insider. We are hopefully returning to theaters in September, fingers crossed, with the soft opening. But there has been a lot of unrest in the Broadway industry. There's been a lot of activism in the Broadway industry for the last 14 months. I'm curious, as a Broadway community member, are there changes you would like to see in the Broadway community once we all do go back to the theater?
Absolutely. Um, we have to be more mindful as a community of creatives to be properly representing people in the world, in the country, and stories. We need to make Broadway more accessible to not, to people that aren't just rich to go and see these shows. Because, you know, the, I'll say, I love this quote by Nina Simone, that an artist's duty is to reflect the times. And you have a lot of playwrights, um, and authors and composers who are trying to do just that, who are trying to change the world. And then when we only allow a limited amount of people to come see those shows because the ticket price is so high,
Hmm.
and we make this like an elitist audience, audience for elitism, it's counter to who we are as people. So that's one change. And we need representation in the characters that we write. I think we also need to change the way that we treat people of color. There's a lot of that we just need to make adjustments. And obviously there's then the stuff that's going on with Scott Rudin. And I wasn't surprised. I don't think anybody was. We've been hearing these
No
stories.
one.
But
Yeah.
I think our standards have to change. What are we going to allow? What kind of behavior are we going to allow? And what's important to us,
Thank you for being honest and open to the question. I know I didn't send it to you in advance, but I have been asking everyone that question as they come on iHeartRadio Broadway. So I do appreciate you being open to answering the question. Again, Women of Tomorrow comes out May 7th, wherever you buy your albums, wherever you stream your albums. Laura Bell Bundy, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome back to the East Coast. Hopefully we'll see each other in person soon, but I do thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.